the aggression that we saw from those Chelsea fans. And to be honest, we see that every Saturday at football grounds across the country. So is that acceptable? Here to discuss this, we've got Robbie and Chris, who of course experienced this as players and since they've retired as well. Also, here's Ugo Monye, who grew up in Islington watching Arsenal before starting an international rugby career, and Jeff Brazier, who's watched football at all levels, played semi-professionally and also coaches at youth level. So let's start with Robbie and Chris. You suffered from abuse in your playing days and since you've retired. How bad did it get in your playing days, Robbie?
Well, you know, football is very tribal, and, you know, when football supporters go to a game, they just lose all sense of where they are, you know, and they believe that they can, you know, abuse you in different ways. For me, it was very personal, the aggression in their faces. And not everybody, I think there's a minority. But when you're playing, all I want to do as a footballer was do my best I could, kick a ball around, you know, and the abuse I received on the pitch and off the pitch, really, because people have got to understand, Jules, that I'm a son, I'm a father, I'm a brother. You know, and when I'm off the pitch now, the football fans feel they can abuse me. It happened in the week. I went to Barcelona to see Spurs. Six Spurs fans. You know, every obscenity you can throw at me. I see them in the airport, and then I see them after the game. Same obscenities, swearing in front of everyone. And I'm a human being, Jules.
What are they saying? Are they reflecting on things from the past? Are they being? Is it personal abuse? What actually are they saying now? Because you've now retired from the game, so it's not like they're picking fun at the team you play for.
Well, that's because of my persona on the football pitch. You know, I was an aggressive player. I got yellow cards. You know, but all I wanted to do was win a football match. And the aggression, the thing I can understand is the aggression in football fans' faces and their anger. I just think it's shocking.
Chris, you've experienced this as well, haven't you? Surely this is about the football. Why is it so accepted that this anger's allowed?
It's not for a certain section of fans. I mean, there is an element of football fans who go to football to not actually watch the game. My son was at a game in the Northwest a couple of weeks ago. He said a quarter of the away fans weren't even watching the football. And they go there to cause trouble. And that's the way it is. And football can learn a lot from the likes of rugby and cricket, fans who go to actually watch the sport. Any type of abuse is totally unacceptable.
Ugo, you obviously work in the rugby world, but how did you feel when you saw the abuse Sterling received last weekend?
Well, I was disgusted. I mean, the guy may as well have shouted at me because he thinks he's targeting Sterling, but actually he's affecting, and he's pointed abuse at a whole race, whether you were there watching, whether you've read it in the papers. He was talking at black men in that one moment. And just to pick up what Robbie's saying, it's not just what he's saying, it's the aggression. And I think if we're going to deal with this problem and talk about it seriously, and it's an uncomfortable topic, we've got to understand as to why. We see the words, but why are people going to football? And we know it's an emotive sport. Every sport is, but to what level do you turn from supporting your team, having effect and apparently supporting your team, to turn into that kind of physical abuse or verbal abuse? I think it's absolutely shocking.
The stuff I read in the paper, the guy's trying to get out of it with terminology. It was still abuse, whether it was the word black or mank, it was still vile, abusive. Yeah. And that is totally, it's wrong, it's unacceptable.
Clearly racism is unacceptable.
For either.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ugo, in rugby, do you see this same level of aggression?
No, not at all. We see it on the pitch, but within the laws, and at times we overstep it. And I'm certainly not here saying that rugby's perfect. There's loads that we can learn from football. But in terms of what we see from the engagement of the fans, I mean, you're looking at different worlds, you know, where you can enjoy a beer in the crowd, you can sit against the opposition fan, get along with one another because you're there for the purity of the sport. You're there to support it. The whole idea, let's not forget sports entertainment. You're there to go with your family, your wife, your brother, your boyfriend, whatever. You're there to be entertained. Yeah. So why does it cross over from being entertained into something abusive, whether it's religion, race, or whatever it is? It's just completely unacceptable. We have a completely different mentality, one which I'm really proud of.
Jeff, what about in the non-league levels of football and the lower leagues? Because you obviously cover a lot of non-league football for us on BT Sport. Do you see this same level of aggression in those leagues?
I wouldn't say aggression, I'd say begrudging. I think from teams like Hartlepool, Wrexham, Orient, maybe teams that have fallen from grace, as it were, that were league clubs and now all of a sudden find themselves languishing in the National League. I think there is that general tone of why are we here, and I don't want to see that again in this particular game. But saying that, I think the difference between the Premier League and the problem we saw at Chelsea and National League or non-league levels is just that we don't have the safety in numbers. I think that tribalism is a really great thing to throw in there because when there's such numbers around you and you think you're representing the views of others around you, you know, no doubt they've been sitting next to these people for years and you've all been shouting the same stuff, so it kind of makes it feel like it's all right or that you have to do it for acceptance. But at a non-league game, when actually there's not so many people around you, that abuse that you're shouting is far more audible and people can sing that, so therefore the acceptance of it sort of goes down slightly, I'd say.
Robbie, when you've been playing before, have you heard your fans chanting and being abusive to the opposition? Do you hear that when you're on the pitch, and how does that make you feel? When it's not actually directed at you, but it's at the other team.
You hear, listen, Jules, you hear all kinds of chants when you're on your pitch, but you are focused, you know, and you know you tend not to hear what the fans are chanting. I used to try and blank it out, and you know there is a line, and if that line's crosses, obviously it's totally unacceptable. But you know, as a player on the pitch, if the abuse was under the line, you know, I would thrive on it. If I was getting booed and people were just, you know, calling me, you know, an obscenity in a way where it was acceptable, I would thrive off that, if you don't know what I mean.
But Robbie, for me...
There's a line, though.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about race. So the guy's obviously tried to target Sterling and he's pointed at his race to try and get at him. But for me, I mean, that's a hate crime. So target someone's religion, their sexual orientation or their race is a hate crime. But what's the difference between someone shouting, "I hope your kids die, I hope this happens"? And so if a white guy's shouting at another white footballer or a black supporter shouting at another black player, there's no difference between the hate crime of racism and someone shouting bad things about your family, your wife, your kids, and we hear that every single week.
It can't be okay just because it's in a football stadium.
Exactly, but it never gets picked up.
But why is that okay, though? Because they clearly feel like it is okay.
Yeah.
Is it that tribalism that you
They feel like they've been the 12th man. So I think people need to redefine what being the 12th man is, because that's what they're paying their money to do. They want to be a big part of their club, and they are effectively, or should act as an ambassador for their team. They ultimately wear the shirt, they wear the badge equally so.
But some football fans take that when it's off the pitch. As I said before, you know, I've had my house windows smashed. I've been spat at in the street. I've been punched in the head. I've had my car damaged. You know, as I said, I'm a dad. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm a normal person off the pitch. On the pitch, yeah, I want to win. But off the pitch, why should the tribalism carry off the pitch?
You also all have families as well, don't you? So how do you feel about your children going to football matches and the safety for them there, or the things they're hearing? Do you feel like you need to kind of prepare them for that?
When my kids were young, my mate was at Charlton. We used to go there quite a lot. It was when they were in the Premier League, and I had to stop going really because there were, in the section that they would sit us, the families of players or whatever, you would have a few people that were so abusive and swearing so much that I thought it was kind of inappropriate for me to take my kid. So I stopped. I wonder how many dads are desperate to take their kids to football matches, but actually decide against it because of the behaviour of those around.
Chris, obviously it's such a huge issue and it's something that is ongoing. It's not going to disappear tomorrow. But what do we need to do to tackle it?
Well, with the guy at Stamford Bridge last week, you need to chuck him in prison, and you need to make a stand against it. Otherwise, people will continue to think they can get away with it.
Those fans were suspended. Was that enough?
Well, it's suspended until the investigation, but, like, come on, it doesn't need a major investigation. It's pretty obvious what the guy said. You're absolutely right. It should be banned from all sport. For some of these guys, they live for the weekend. They live for those 90 minutes. Take it away from them. Yeah. Take it away from them, the way they took away Sterling's dignity, the way they affected me and everyone else that reached out, the way they affected all of us. But as much as we can point a finger at the fans, I think we should also look at home. And we talk about sporting values, respect. FA, UEFA, FIFA spend millions of pounds on a kick-out campaign, on a respect campaign. And if as sportsmen that we want other people to live by our values, then we have to live by them themselves. Because I see a respect campaign, and we'll see it today, we'll see it next week, we'll see it every single week, every single football match. I see footballers disrespect referees every single week. So we can't cherry-pick the values we want to live by. It's true, though, isn't it, right? Yes. If we want to set a standard as what is right and what's not, then we also, I think, fundamentally need to live by those standards as well. Also